Hey guys, today I wanted to show you something super quick and easy that you can do at home that's going to create a really nice wholesome food. And all it is making creative use of leftover grinds from making nut and seed milks. I was just thinking of creative ways to harvest that stuff instead of throwing it out. So what I came up with was dehydrated crackers. And I'm going to show you the lineup of ingredients for this kind of stuff and also give you some ideas for variations. And all you really need is a dehydrator. If you don't have a dehydrator, you could always try doing these in the oven at the lowest possible temperature setting. But this is definitely more intended for like a dehydrator kind of scenario where you can keep it as a raw recipe, and it's going to be very wholesome, full of good fats as well as protein as well. So I'm going to show you that now. Alright you guys, so this right here is the main base, and all it is chia seeds. 100 grams of chia seeds that I weighed out, and I left them soaking in just enough water so that you get a good binding, and you'll notice that they do grow to like quite a lot more the volume after you soak them. Do this ideally overnight, or at the very least 4 hours, just to give enough time for the stuff to germinate a little bit and make it easier for digestion and unlocking more nutritional value. The second thing that we are going to be putting in here is the dry spices. Now you can put whatever you want to make whatever flavors you like. Today I'm going to be using, and this is just again to taste whatever you like, have about a tablespoon of cinnamon, about half a tablespoon of ginger powder, and then I have a smaller amount of nutmeg, allspice, and even a little bit of Garam Masala. So this is going to give a really nice flavor, and the cool thing about using a good amount of spices in here is that it's going to minimize the amount of sugar or sweetening agent so that you can enjoy sweet crackers. Before I put those in, I'm also going to be putting in some cranberries. These are dried cranberries, but you'll notice I left them soaking for a while so that they can be nice and soft, and it makes mixing a lot easier as well. And this leftover water here I'm actually going to add to the spices so that I can make a little bit of a paste with it, and it'll just help in the blending process better when I add it to the chia. So that's all we do there. And then it's just a gentle stir. So there you go. We got a nice paste. It smells really good, and it's going to add a lot of nice warming flavor as well to the chia. So I'm going to add this in here. And you're just going to incorporate it a little bit. I find the fork is very helpful to do this because of the wedges and the teeth of the fork really run easily through the mixture. And it's easier to make sure that the flavor is well incorporated. It's why we add the more potent stuff into the initial mix before it gets harder to mix. The next thing we're going to add here is also an optional ingredient. I want to make it a little bit more protein heavy, because I'm adding in here probably about 3 tablespoons worth of hemp protein. Again, you can add in really any kind of superfood powders that you've got, or even dried herbs if you want to make it more of a medicinal value. And there's really no limits here. It's just whatever you use, make sure that you at the same time enjoy the taste of it. And this is a pretty forgiving recipe because the way that it's sweetened is it will mask anything that might seem kind of like not so flavorful or not so enjoyable. So by all means, feel free to experiment with herbs, dried herb powders that you feel would be appropriate for any conditions you may have, so that you can incorporate more herbs and spices into your daily foods regimens without, you know, just sprinkling it on salads or something like that. Add it to everything. Add spices to everything. Fresh herbs as well. So that part is now good to go, and next thing I'm going to add is the next moist ingredient here. This here is 50 grams of ground flax seeds. I want to say please don't buy pre-ground flax seeds because they are highly subjected to oxidative damage from light, oxygen, and heat as well. And really the sensitive omega-3 fats are going to get rancid. So you want to get your own, get a coffee grinder or the dry mix on the Vitamix, for example, and just make your own fresh powder. And what ends up happening is, again, you add just enough water to make like this jelly-like consistency. Because I left it soaking for a while, it's almost more like Play-Doh. But this is, think of it like almost like eggs. You know, they're going to really do good binding, emulsifying action. And as well, the flax lends a really good flavor. It really I find it really balances out any wide range of flavors, from like bitter to spicy to whatever. I find flax, probably because of its mucilaginous nature, it just makes everything more soothing. And it's also just a really healthy thing to eat, and this is a really good way to incorporate it into a food. So that's in there. We'll mix that in as well. Alright, that's incorporated. So next ingredient I'm going to add in, because this is getting a little thicker, is going to be bananas. This here is 3 mashed up bananas. I just mashed it with a fork. And I also added, optional, but it's a nice flavor as well, just 2 drops of therapeutic grade lime essential oil, and it gives a really nice aroma, and it's going to enhance the flavor as well of the recipe. So you're going to toss that in. And if you want it sweeter, you can always add up to like 5, even 6 bananas. It really doesn't matter too much. But I find 3 is more than enough. But I'm also okay with not having things being too sweet as well. So again, just play with it, do it to taste. And then again, stir it and incorporate. One thing I also want to mention about the flax is that when you do ground up, you can grind up a lot more and then just store it in an airtight glass container in the freezer, and that's going to preserve it really well, and it'll be basically ready to go whenever you want to use some ground flax, which you could easily make porridge out of instead of having to go to the trouble of milling fresh flax every single time you want to use it. Alright, the banana's mixed in. Next thing I want to add is the nut and seed grinds. So this here is the leftover from the nut and seed milk that I made. This particular mix happens to be about almost half sunflower seeds, then some almonds, as well as a little bit of cashews, and I also put in some pumpkin seeds as well. So this here, I'm just going to toss it in. You'll notice that it's almost like a marzipan kind of thing. And this is about 200 grams on average for when I make about 2 liters of nut seed milk. And obviously you're using more than 200 grams of the original nut and seeds, because after you grind it up when making the nut milks, it's going to, quite a bit of it is still going to stay in the milk itself. These are just the heavier grinds that don't get through the filter. So this is a really good way to use them. Cool thing about this setup is you don't even need any equipment to do anything other than just a dehydrator. And okay, last thing is going to be some dried cranberries, the ones I showed earlier. I did break them up a little bit because I like them being smaller. It's easier to then perforate the dough after I put it on the dehydrator sheets. If they're too big, sometimes it just kind of gets messy to work with. But it doesn't matter, it's really up to you. So I'll toss those in, and you could really make any dried fruit to add to this recipe, whatever you like. I use bananas for the sweetening. You could also make a paste out of dates, or you would just soak them and then add enough water and blend it together, or even apricots. Like, you can really just be creative with it. I could have even done a paste with the cranberries by adding just a little bit of water and then grinding it up really well in the Vitamix to make a paste as well. But I like having things to chew into and seeing colors. The visual aesthetic and appeal of a food and the smell is just as valuable as the taste. And all of it just adds to something that's really going to feel good when you eat it, especially when you make from scratch. And it may seem like it's a snack by the time we're done, but really look at the ingredients that are in here. These are whole foods, and they're very nourishing as well. So I think of this as a food as opposed to like a snack. So I could really have a meal out of a couple of these and maybe something else on the side. I will say that I do like peanut butter on these guys. They're pretty good. Once everything is like really well completely incorporated, you'll see that it's like really jelly-like. And that makes it really easy to spread on the dehydrator sheets. I want to also mention that you guys can sprinkle in as much sea salt as you like on this. Sea salt always binds and brings out flavors as well. So I probably put in about half a teaspoon in here while I wasn't recording it. As well as cardamom was another spice that I put in here that I also didn't mention. And yeah, so now we're going to spread this out. Alright guys, so here's our dehydrator tray, and it's got one of the Teflex sheets that comes with the Excalibur models. And now what I'm going to do is just use a spatula to basically pour all this yumminess onto the sheet. You see, it actually comes out really super easy, like one big ball of dough. Alright, then just use your spatula and spread this out as evenly as you can, all the way near to the borders of the Dehydrating sheet. Now this is quite a fairly large batch for one dehydrator sheet, so I'm going to get fatter cookies, and that's okay because it gives you a little bit of chewiness in the center of them. But if you want to have something a bit more crispy, then you could divide this batch in half, use 2 dehydrator trays, and you will also require a little bit less time in the dehydration process, and you'll get more snap in your crackers. So you want to make sure that the thickness is about even throughout. Okay, so normally I would have advised to make this much quantity and to 2 sheets so that you have less thickness, because as it is, this is about almost half of an inch of thickness, which means it's going to take a lot more time to dehydrate. And if you do the split batch, then it's going to probably only take 12 hours, and then after you flip, it'll be another 12 hours. This is probably going to be more than a day's worth of work in the dehydrating, just because I made it thicker. So you can avoid that if you want by simply doing 2 trays. The next thing I do is perforate using the rounded edge of the spatula. I'm going to just at the center of the square make little lines, gently pressing through. And all this just simple wedging will just make it a lot easier afterwards for when you snap them out according to, you know, sort of whatever size you want. Usually I do like a 6x4 perforation. And there we go, got a 6x4 perforation. Yeah, they don't look like they're much separated, but this indentation is all that's needed to later refine the cut. Now we're going to move this into the dehydrator. And here we are. I set this for the maximum amount of hours, which is 26 on this machine. And I never change my temperature outside of 110 degrees Fahrenheit. I find that's the ideal temperature. Unless I'm doing herbs, then I'll put that temperature a little lower. And that's it. So we're going to let this run for probably about 12 hours and then do the flip and so we can remove the Teflon sheet. And once we do that, the other side will be able to dry as well. And then I'll run for another 12 hours at least, and we'll see how that goes. Hey guys, here we are. So it's been a bit over 12 hours now, and you can see that these things have defined themselves along the periphery that we cut. And now what we need to do is turn them over so we get the dryness on the other side too. So all you do is take another dehydrator tray, turn it upside down, right over top, and then you just flip the whole thing over. That's it. Take that back, and we gently peel off the Teflon sheet, and you can see it's all gooey underneath. Alright, now we're going to put that back in the dehydrator and let it go for probably about another 12 hours at least, and we'll gauge how it goes along the way. Hey guys, there's about 6 hours now left in the process, and what I did at this point is I turned them over once again to a nice finished side. And what I want to do, and this is totally optional by the way, is make a glaze to spread on top. And you can use whatever superfoods or spices you want for this, but a particular combination that I really enjoy is cinnamon powder as well as mesquite powder. And I have about a tablespoon of each, and all I'm going to do is add just enough maple syrup in order to be able to make it syrupy and spreadable on top of the crackers, which is probably going to be about 2 tablespoons worth of maple syrup. And whatever amount you need, you just play with the quantities so that you can able to get the consistency that you need in order to do this. And then you're just really going to gently stir it in until you make a paste. If you need a little bit more maple syrup, by all means add it in. So this is the fairly semi-runny consistency, paste-like texture that you want. And with this, I ended up having to use about 4 tablespoons of maple syrup. And this is good. So next step, you can either use a brush or a spatula, and you're just going to take a little bit of this yummy coating that we made, and you're going to brush it on top of the crackers just like that. And you can be as detail oriented as you want or as quick about it as you like, and just cover it up. And with the remaining 6 hours more or less that are left for the stuff to dry, the top will also fully harden and there won't be any stickiness or residue that comes off from the crackers. So I'll just do this for all of them, and then once it's done dehydrating, I'll show you guys the final finished product and how absolutely gorgeous these taste. Hey guys, so here you have it, the final finished product of our dehydrated crackers. You can see that after 24 to 36 hours, depending on the thickness of your crackers and the overall conditions in your home, they'll be nice and dry. If you want them a little even more chewier, you can leave them in less time. And maybe you can see on the camera here, the glazed coating that we put on top is nice and dry, so there's no stickiness to it whatsoever. So these store really well for quite a long time in mason jars or even your fridge if you want. And remember, like, these are like, this is like whole foods, a lot of nutrition packed in these, so you don't even have to think of them just as a snack, but you can consider these like whole foods and incorporate them as, you know, really part of a meal. So that's a nice thing about these guys. And you can make these on, if you make your own milks, you can use those grinds and just continue making these on a regular basis and share with others. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you guys play around with the recipe, create your own flavors and whatnot. And if anyone feels inspired to share, please post below. Thank you.